ESPN just had one of the most intense debates I've seen about the San Francisco 49ers, and I have to tell you everything that was said because the analysts completely disagreed with each other about what the team should do next. The discussion about who should replace Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator got genuinely heated with different analysts pushing completely different candidates. Let me walk you through the entire debate, because it reveals a lot about the options the 49ers are considering. The ESPN coverage started with the obvious news. Robert Saleh is gone. 2 days after the 49ers season ended, he agreed to become the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. The analysts acknowledged it was a good move for Saleh personally. It's one of 32 head coaching jobs in the world. Any competitive person wants to be at the top of their industry. For Saleh, that means being a head coach, not a coordinator. But then the debate started about whether it was actually a smart move for Saleh to take the Titans job specifically. One of the ESPN analysts questioned the decision pretty harshly. He pointed out that the Titans were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. They have a young, unproven quarterback in Cam Ward. And Saleh just came from a similar situation with the Jets, where he had a young, unproven quarterback, and it blew up in his face. The analyst made an interesting point about Saleh being a defensive-minded coach. If you have him in charge of developing a young quarterback, that's not what he does. Someone else has to handle that. And if that someone else fails, Saleh takes the blame anyway. It's a risky situation. Another ESPN analyst pushed back on this, though. He argued that Cam Ward is different from what Saleh had in New York. Ward was the #1 overall pick for a reason. He's got worlds of talent. And unlike the Jets situation, where Saleh was rolling the dice on an unknown commodity, this time he got to see a full season of Cam Ward in the NFL. He got to game plan against him. He knows what Ward looks like as a professional player. That's valuable information. The debate then shifted to what Saleh needs to do to succeed in Tennessee. The ESPN analysts agreed on one thing. He needs to get a great offensive coordinator, get a quarterback whisperer who can develop Ward. Saleh can focus on the defense and on being the leader of the organization. Just get someone who knows offense and knows how to put points on the board. If he does that, he'll be fine. But then came the main event of this ESPN segment. Who should the 49ers hire to replace Saleh? And this is where the analysts really went at each other with different opinions. The first candidate that got significant support was Jim Schwartz, the current defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. One analyst made what I thought was a really compelling case for Schwartz. He talked about how Kyle Shanahan needs his Steve Spagnuolo. He needs that older coach in his 60s or older, who isn't going to get hired away for a head coaching job. Someone who will provide stability and consistency year after year. The analyst pointed out that Spagnuolo has been with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes for years. He's well respected. He takes head coach interviews, but nobody ever hires him away from Kansas City. So Reid gets to chill out and have one of the top defensive coordinators in the NFL while never worrying about losing him. Shanahan needs that same situation. Jim Schwartz fits that profile, according to this analyst. He's turning 60 very soon. He's not going to be a head coach again at this point in his career. He's interviewed for the Browns' head coaching job, but probably won't get it. And here's the kicker. Shanahan's record against Jim Schwartz defenses is something like 1-8. Schwartz has consistently given Shanahan problems even when coordinating for bad teams with great defenses. The analyst also pointed out the scheme fit. Chris Kukurek and the wide 9 front that the 49ers run comes from Jim Schwartz. That's where it originated. So there's already crossover with what the 49ers do schematically. The transition would be smoother than with some other candidates. But another ESPN analyst immediately pushed back. He argued that the guy is already in the building. Gus Bradley should be the next defensive coordinator. Bradley is currently the assistant head coach for San Francisco. He was the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom. He was a fantastic defensive mind back then. Didn't do great as a head coach, but he's already in the building. He already knows the system. The players know him. It would be plug and play. This analyst made the case that continuity matters. Every time you bring in someone new, There's an adjustment period. The players have to learn new terminology, new expectation, new relationship. With Gus Bradley, you skip all of that. He's been there. He knows how things work. He can step right in, and the defense doesn't miss a beat. Then a third analyst jumped in with what he called the real answer, Brian Flores. He asked point blank, is there a better defensive coordinator option out there than Brian Flores? The room got quiet for a second. The analyst acknowledged that Flores can be difficult when he's in charge. His time as head coach of the Miami Dolphins didn't end well, but as a defensive coordinator, he's got to be top 3 in the NFL. The other analysts pushed back on this one, though. They pointed out that Flores is still under contract with the Minnesota Vikings. He's not a free agent. You can ask for permission to talk to him about a lateral move, but Minnesota would have to agree to let him go. And why would they? Flores has turned their defense into one of the best in the league. Why would the Vikings just let him walk to a division rival? The Flores supporter acknowledged this, but said, you can still ask. Maybe Flores wants a change of scenery. Maybe he wants out of Minnesota for whatever reason. You never know until you try. And the payoff would be enormous because Flores brings a completely different approach than what the 49ers have been running. This led to an interesting discussion about scheme. One analyst pointed out that you can't get more different from Robert Saleh's defense than Brian Flores' defense. Saleh's scheme is relatively static, predictable in its structure, even if the execution is excellent. Flores throws the most stuff at opponents of any coordinator in the league. He has the most different coverages and blitz schemes and disguises. It's organized chaos. The analyst said he'd actually kind of like to see what the 49ers defense looks like unleashing Brian Flores' madness on the NFL. It would be fun, it would be different, and maybe that's exactly what this team needs to get over the hump. But then the conversation came back to Raheem Morris, and this is where things got really interesting. One analyst said, if we're doing betting odds on who actually becomes the 49ers defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris and Gus Bradley are the 2 most likely candidates. Bradley is number 1 because he's already in the building. Morris is number 2 because of his relationship with Shanahan. The analyst broke down the Morris connection. Morris worked with Shanahan in Atlanta. He was Kyle's assistant head coach there. He coached multiple positions, including on the offensive side of the ball as a passing game coordinator and receivers coach, even though he's a defensive-minded guy. They have history, they have trust. Shanahan loves Morris. When Morris got the head coaching job in Atlanta, Shanahan had glowing remarks about him. He talked about trying to get his dad to hire Morris as a defensive coordinator years ago. He said he got Morris to coach with him and has always wanted him to coach with him. He's tried to bring Morris to San Francisco every year. That's a strong endorsement. The ESPN analysts then had a fascinating debate about what Shanahan really wants in a defensive coordinator. One argued that Shanahan wants total control. He essentially wants to be the defensive coordinator himself while having someone else handle the day-to-day stuff. The example given was Steve Wilks saying during his tenure that he was still learning the defense after being there for months. That's not a good sign. That suggests Shanahan was dictating everything, and Wilks was just trying to keep up. Another analyst pushed back on this. He said Shanahan is gripping so tight that things are slipping through his fingers. He wants control so badly that he's actually hurting the defense. Maybe he needs to just hire an awesome coordinator and let them do their thing. Let them run their own scheme, even if it looks a little different. It might actually be better, even though Shanahan likes the system they've developed. The debate then shifted to the offense, and this is where some breaking news came in during the ESPN segment. Mike McDaniel, who some 49ers fans were hoping might return as offensive coordinator if Kubiak leaves, has agreed to become the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's reuniting with Jim Harbaugh. The ESPN analysts reacted to this news in real time. One said he thought about this possibility earlier in the offseason, but couldn't imagine 2 personalities that mesh worse than Jim Harbaugh and Mike McDaniel. They're both so quirky in their own ways. But another analyst said they might actually be more similar than people realize. Harbaugh was always very quirky. McDaniel is quirky too. And when you hear McDaniel talk about his players, he sounds just like Harbaugh. everything is the best. Everyone is amazing. They both have that same over-the-top enthusiasm. The consensus was that McDaniel with Justin Herbert is going to be fun to watch. That's a quarterback to hitch your wagon. Better than Tua. Better than what McDaniel had in Miami. The Chargers' offense could be scary next year, but for the 49ers, it means they're not getting McDaniel back. So the focus returned to the defensive coordinator search. The ESPN analysts concluded by giving their final predictions. One said Gus Bradley because he's already there, and Shanahan values continuity. One said Raheem Morris because of the personal relationship. One said the 49ers should swing for the fences and try to get Jim Schwartz to provide long-term stability. Hey, what's up everyone? Before we dive in, I need 1 second of your time. That like button right there. Hitting it now makes a massive difference in reaching more fans with this content. I know you're ready for the breakdown, but real quick, just smash that like button. It's the single most powerful way to support this channel and help the algorithm push this to thousands more people. Every like matters, so do me that favor right now. The final segment addressed the broader question of what the 49ers need to do this offseason beyond the coordinator hire. One analyst said, wide receiver has to be the priority. When you're trotting out Kendrick Bourne and Brian Robinson as your top options, that's not good enough. The Ayuk situation came back to bite them hard, and Ricky Pearsall couldn't stay healthy. They need to address it either in free agency or the draft. Another analyst made an impassioned case for the trenches. He said the 49ers need to go back to what made them great, being monsters up front on both the offensive line and defensive line. You cannot go on national television in front of the world and not get a yard running the ball like they did in that crucial playoff moment. The offensive line needs to be fixed. And on defense, add another pass rusher. They already spent 2 top 50 picks on defensive linemen. Add another one. Trade for Myles Garrett and bring Jim Schwartz with him. Do whatever it takes to be absolutely beastly up front. A third analyst made a case for safety. He pulled up stats showing that the 49ers safeties allowed 86 receptions on 116 targets this season. That's a 74% completion rate, 955 yards, 14 touchdowns, a passer rating of 119.5 when targeting the safeties, and 48% of the touchdown passes the 49ers gave up were to the safeties' coverage area. Those are brutal numbers. They need a real playmaking safety to fix that problem. The ESPN coverage wrapped up with a sense that the 49ers have a lot of work to do, but also a lot of talent to build around. Brock Purdy is a franchise quarterback. Kyle Shanahan is an elite offensive mind. When healthy, this roster has the pieces to compete for a championship. But they need to make the right moves this offseason. The coordinator hire matters. The free agent signings matter. The draft picks matter. Everything matters when your window is closing. So what do you think about this ESPN debate? Who should the 49ers hire as defensive coordinator? Jim Schwartz for long-term stability? Gus Bradley for continuity? Raheem Morris for the personal connection with Shanahan? Or should they swing for the fences and try to get Brian Flores? Let me know in the comments because this is one of the most interesting coaching searches in the NFL right now. Drop a like if you found this breakdown interesting and want me to keep covering the 49ers off-season. There's going to be a lot of movement and a lot of decisions made in the coming weeks. I want to make sure you're informed about all of it. Until next time, take care of yourselves.